Welcome into episode number 3 of the Grind on Sports. I'm Wayne Kaiser alongside Ben Metz, and we're going to talk a little bit more about sports here today. Got some basketballs on the docket. Got a little bit about National Signing Day. Again, we're recording basically midday on Wednesday, so got a lot of updates, but maybe not the final tally here in 2023. But again, follow us on social media, and we'll kind of keep you there. But then bowl pick'ems. We've got another week to pick right up until the new year. We're going to pick through the 28th because hopefully we will run one last show for the 2022 calendar year next week. But, Ben, how you doing, man? Looks like you've added to your background, and that's always cool when you got new swag up there.
Yeah, I've got some pretty cool memorabilia behind me that means a lot to me. So I've got the Tennessee Vol football helmet. Love the Vols. Mm-hmm. Can't have a game room unless you got a Tennessee Vol football helmet. I played baseball throughout many levels, so I've got a baseball bat up there, and then go Red Rebels.
I always go Rebels, but Ben, a lot to talk about, and again, we're trying to tailor this broadcast to more of a 30-minute podcast, and so we'll jump right into it. Tennessee basketball again went out to Tucson, Arizona, take on the Wildcats in like a battle in the desert kind of little promo, if you will. Played a hot Arizona team, the number one scoring offense in the country, taking on the number one scoring defense in the country. And Ben, we talked about it off air, and we'll kind of unfold it here. I don't know that they played good enough to win. I don't know that Tennessee did what they needed to do to get that victory, but the conversation amongst fans and amongst the sports world post that game was not about the execution on the court. It was the whistles on the court.
Yeah, I believe it was an aggressive game on both sides of the court. It should have resulted in an equal number of fouls. When you look at the numbers, Wayne, 42.9% from the field for Tennessee to their 42.6. We beat them behind the arc from three-point land, 29.6 to their 20.8. Rebounding was equal with a slight edge to the Wildcats. Turnovers was down for us, 12 to their 15. So, yeah, the difference, you do 24 fouls to their 15. It results in 24 points out of 27 attempts from the charity stripe. And the discussion at the water cooler on Monday is about the officiating.
Well, it was a 5-point game. I think anytime there's that discrepancy in fouls, you can draw that conclusion, right? You can question their calls. But another piece that I think was talked about during the post game with Rick Barnes, but also throughout the week, there was a technical foul early in that game on Urosh that that's 2 points that if at the end of the game you don't have to foul to try to get it closer, those are things you've got to clean up. To me, don't get me wrong, I think you have to push on the officials to be better because I think if you look at that crew, I think there was 2 Pac-12 officials, 1 Big Ten guy, and then a Mountain West or something. Yeah. If the crew was loaded to the Pac-12 favor, if you will. They've seen that team more than they've seen us. And so to me, I think that's always going to be an uphill battle for the team on the less identified side, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But the things we can control is our tempers, our ability to play within the culture that Rick Barnes has put out there. And Uros Plavsic, don't get me wrong, he's fun. He's probably the biggest cheerleader on the sideline. But when he starts costing your team points, there has to be a change. Rick Barnes addressed it, said, I'm tired of his antics. He said, I'm done with it. He's got to learn to – he's a good kid, but he's got to learn to play within himself and do the right things. And I guess my thing is I don't fault him because I always want you to play with passion. But there is a fine line when passion starts negatively impacting your ball club that you have to address it. And right now, I think Rick Barnes is having to go through that. They're going to play Austin Peay tonight. I wouldn't be shocked if Urosh doesn't play limited minutes tonight. I could see Rick Barnes really saying, listen, we can win without you.
Yeah, that's his style, right? And really, Kemwa's been playing pretty good basketball over this past stretch. So 7 points against Kansas, 8 points against Maryland, had 16 points against Arizona, and he's playing roughly about the same amount of minutes, about 25 or 30 minutes. So look for him to have an uptick in minutes, and hopefully he can continue to shoot the ball well.
Well, and I think you look, this is the last chance that you can really discipline Urosh without it having really negative impact. We play Ole Miss next week to open conference play. You're going to need him. You're going to need those minutes. Even if it's not his scoring ability, you're going to need his defense, his length to be able to guard the rim. Again, Kermit Davis is going to play an aggressive brand of basketball. But I don't think all is lost out in Tucson. I'm a big early season adversity guy when it's not college football. I think if it's college football, you just have to be perfect. I mean, really, that's the game that we play now. But in the college basketball realm, if you can look up and have a few early season losses, as long as you keep them close, which I feel like we did against Arizona, if Arizona continues to be the offensive juggernaut that they've been, that's going to be a quality loss. That's going to be a top loss there. We've got the Kansas one in our pocket. Bracketology this week has shown that we could possibly be the 3 seed in one of the brackets with Kansas and Arizona, the 1 and 2. So I think there's still a lot of meat left on the bone to get better. I think we're going to have to in a hurry because, like I said, we don't run and hide to start conference play. But I like this basketball team. I think Phillips, for the first time this season, looked like a freshman. But again, I think in that display, you can learn a lot. You can grow a lot because now he knows he may not be the biggest dog in the yard. He knows he's going to have to do some things. I think, like you said, Olivier Kumwa, he's done a lot of nice things coming back from the injury. I think he's finally getting back to his old form. I think I'm probably as impressed with Meshack as I am any of them because he can play the full court. I mean, he can go inside. He's got the physicality to do that, but he's also been able to step out and take a 3. So I like the dynamics and the depth of this basketball team. I just think they've got to grow up a little bit, and then I think ultimately they've got to play I use this term off air in one of our text chats. They've got to play a brand of basketball that makes the officials call it. They're so clean on the both ends of the floor that when a foul happens, it's blatantly obvious.
Yeah, and I think what they need going into the holidays here, Wayne, is they need a healthy Triple J. I mean, this is a guy who scored 16 points in round 1 against the Aggies, 17 against Longwood, in round 2 against Michigan, 13 points in the Sweet 16. This year, he's shooting 37% from three-point land. He's tied with Kemwa, believe it or not, for the lead. And from a defensive perspective, Wayne, his offense is not what everybody talks about, but from a defensive perspective, 46 steals last season. He averages sub-2 per game. So this is a guy that when he gets on the court, he creates problems for the opponent and opportunities for our offense.
I guess the big question, Ben, and again, closing out this topic, basketball Vols going into Christmas and the New Year's, are they ready for conference play?
I believe they are. Mississippi State and Ole Miss, they on paper are a better shooting basketball team from the field. However, the competition they have played has been subpar compared to the opponents that we've played, the Colorados, the Kansas, the Marylands. So I think when we get into conference play against these opponents, we'll be ready.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't want to say that we're going to blow out conference play and go undefeated in the Southeastern Conference. I think in any sport nowadays, that's a tall task. You just don't get through the gauntlet that is the Southeastern Conference without a few little scars and nicks and bruises. But I do think Tennessee is tough. I think that goes a long way in this conference because you have to be tough. I think Tennessee's deep. I think being able to play these non-conference games without Triple J have made us learn who our not our 6th guy is, but who 8 and 9 are. And I think with that, that's gonna help us down the road. So I do think they're ready for conference play. I would not be shocked if Kermit Davis doesn't have a great game plan ready for us and we drop number one. But I also wouldn't be shocked if Rick Barnes kind of challenges his guys and they roll out and thump the what are they now? The Land Sharks, the Brown Bears, the whatever Ole Miss is. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't just thump them there on opening night. The next thing I want to talk about, National Signing Day. National Signing Day 2023 is here. Of course, Tennessee right now looking pretty strong as I think number 9 midday is kind of where they're sitting. Got a lot of commits come in. Nico, obviously, and a couple others have already been at bowl practice, so not sure those are ones that we were worried about. But I like where this team is. And in previous years, I'm like, we got to be top 5. We've got to be number 1 in the Southeastern Conference, which in a lot of ways is number 1 in the country. But with this coaching staff and this style of offense, I put very little stock in National Signing Day rankings because they know what they need. They get what they need. And obviously in year 2, he showed me he can do with what he has.
Yeah, we've heard many times, these 4 stars, these 5 stars, they don't pan out and they end up dropping their star ranking as they progress in their college career. The Texas offensive tackle that we picked up, and I'm going to butcher his name here, but Andrej Karic, he was a 4-star coming out in the 2021 class, and then last year his star ranking dropped to 3 stars. So I'm like you, I don't put a lot of stock into the star ranking because all these kids are dominant football players in their respective area. When they go play SEC football, they're competing against dominant football players in their area.
Well, and I think, addressing places of need, offensive, defensive line, obviously some skill positions. Obviously, you got to continue in this offense to generate wide receivers because he showed in year 2 he's going to create Biletnikoff Award winners and send kids to the NFL. So I think if you look at that, he's addressed a few of those. The class started really early. I guess the fax line opened at 7:00. It's crazy. We're at 2022 and we still fax these things in. But defensive lineman Caleb Herring kind of got us off to a good start. The next one, trying to get it, Davin Hobbs. He's a defensive lineman, so quickly addressing that defensive front, trying to find some pass rush. He's from Concord, North Carolina. Arian Carter, he's a linebacker from Smyrna, Tennessee. That's a huge get, especially in state, one of the top prospects in the country. Nico, not going to try his last name here. I need a phonetic before I'm going to roll with that. But Nico, he signed at 7:26 officially. Like I said, been on campus at practice, but he's from Long Beach, California. Also, from my understanding, a Division I volleyball player at his high school. So he's big time athletic, and so we'll see what's going on. Seen some really nice things from Joe Milton, trying to bring him along pretty quick there in bowl practice. Jack Luttrell, defensive back from Gainesville, Georgia. I thought there was only one garbage pit of Gainesville, but I guess there's one in Georgia too. Trevor Duncan, he's a defensive lineman from Knoxville. That's a nice pickup. Nathan Robinson, defensive lineman from Greenbrier, Tennessee. I think what I like about that is, one, we've seen both lines, defensive, Rodney Garner, and then I can't think of the offensive coach's name, but both of those guys have been able to get out more than really what on paper guys can put out. And I love getting these kids locally because I think their heart's in it to play for the Vols.
Yeah, what I like about a couple of those names you mentioned, you can start to see the walls border up around the state of Tennessee. That Arian Carter pickup, typically Central Tennessee, when Alabama's involved, that's a difficult pull for us in the past 5 years. So for him to pass on Alabama, come to Tennessee, that's a huge pickup for us at linebacker, an area that we saw clearly in the South Carolina game that we need to have depth at linebacker. The edge rusher, Caleb Herring from Riverdale. This is a guy 6'5", 206 pounds. I mean, how can you be so tall and not be pushing 250? This is a guy that can move, and he can move quick. and he passed on Notre Dame. So Notre Dame comes down, tries to get him. Texas A&M tries to pull him from Central Tennessee, and he stays home. So what I like to see about this class is we're starting to not only see us get outside of the state and get some of those big recruits like Nico, but we're also closing down the borders.
Sure, absolutely. Nathan Leacock, he's a wide receiver from Raleigh, North Carolina. This is all guys that signed and pushed it in before 8 o'clock. That's the first hour of commits. Cameron Selden, a wide receiver out of Brown Store, Virginia. He was the first 8 o'clock commitment. Chindavian Bradley, he's a defensive lineman from Plate City, Missouri. So he's another big that we needed up front. Aiden Bussell, an offensive lineman from Mount Juliet, Tennessee. He was 819 signee. Tyree Weathersby, defensive lineman, Douglasville, Georgia, 827. Larry Johnson III, offensive lineman from Savannah, Georgia. Here's the thing. If we don't lock down borders, dipping into Georgia has always been a big help for us. I mean, you look at it, guys like Josh Dobbs, Train Davis, he came from Georgia. I think Al Wilson came from Georgia. Believe me, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina have been every bit of as impactful to Tennessee football as the state of Tennessee itself. I mean, I think it goes without saying we have come leaps and bounds over maybe the last 15 years, but athletically, a lot of times Tennessee's had to go outside of the state to build a Division I program, and so that's kind of good that we still have those in ties to Georgia and the surrounding states. Vyson Lang, have you seen this guy? He's an offensive lineman from Pike Road, Alabama. Dipped into the Tide State or the War Eagle State and took one away from them. Jalen Smith, a linebacker from Grayson, Georgia. That rounds out the 8 o'clock commitments. And again, bigs, and more bigs are really trying to bring in some beef, especially when you play the brand of offense that we do. One, you need offensive linemen that can go in and out and make that transition. But two, if it doesn't work out, you go 3 and out. You've got to have depth at defense to be able to stand up there too.
Yeah, I think with you talked about it, Wayne, this offense, you're going to have players like Nico. You talked about Jack Luttrell, some of these guys, some of these skilled position players that are going to come here and play football because, they're going to be on the ESPN market making a run to get drafted in the NFL. It says a lot about this coaching staff when you get multiple offensive linemen to come play football here, multiple defensive linemen, linebackers that are playing in this type of offensive system. It's because they believe in the coaching.
I think that's a great point. 9 o'clock gave us Jeremiah Thielander, a linebacker out of Gainesville, Georgia. I would think maybe a teammate of one of the previous commits. Max Gilbert, he's a place kicker from Memphis, Tennessee. But if I'm not mistaken, no, that was Charles Campbell. Charles Campbell is a transfer kicker from Indiana, so already has some Power 5 experience there. Shamarad Umarov, an offensive lineman from Alpharetta, Georgia. That may be completely wrong, but the Alpharetta, Georgia's right. Christian Conyer, defensive back, Bowling Green, Kentucky. Jordan Matthews, a defensive back, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so right out of Tiger Country. And I think if history says anything, if your name is Jordan Matthews, you're probably good at something.
Yeah, absolutely.
John Slaughter, the name already wins. He's a defensive back from Clarksdale, Mississippi. I'm not sure if that's related to Danico. It'd be hard-pressed for me to think there's a whole lot of Slaughter families out there, but as long as he does that on the field, I'll take it from wherever he comes from.
Yeah,
Ricky Gibson III, defensive back from Trussville, Alabama. Charles Campbell, he's the transfer from Indiana, but hometown Jackson, Tennessee. So coming home to play for the Vols. And then McCollin Castles, he's a tight end from South Lake Tahoe, California. As you can tell, we've got a strong contingency from the Southeast, but also dipped out west and got some good players. So that won't be the end of the signing day today. But again, 9th in the country. I'm not sure where we're ranking right now in the Southeastern Conference, but I like what we're seeing. Tennessee, very relevant in the big names. I think getting a five-star quarterback, I think it's first time since the early 2000s. That's a huge get for Josh Heupel. One, because don't get me wrong, I don't want to take anything away from Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton, et cetera, but when you get a five-star guy, there's bust in anything. But when you get a five-star guy, the psychological development is advanced. And so what you can feed them early is advanced. And so what I like about Nico is, because I don't think he starts as a freshman. I think, honestly, between Taven Jackson, Joe Milton, as long as those guys stay around, they're going to want Nico to put on about 15, 20 pounds. He's a pretty skinny dude. And so I think he's not going to start as a freshman, but he can take all the practice reps. He can take all the mental reps, and this could be a sophomore that's ready to explode come 24.
Yeah, this is a young man that needs to take a year, learn from Joe Milton, learn from other quarterbacks in the system, even Navy Schuler, and understand the game from the collegiate level. But year two, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm trying to see where we are looking, and of course, I pull up an article from looks like somewhere in the relative nature of 2016. That's not where you want to look at an article, but it looks like Tennessee somewhere in that 7 to 9 based on your outlet as far as in the country, and that's going to put us top 5 or 6 in the SEC. So I think Tennessee's in a good place. Like I said, there's a February signing day, so I think you kind of reevaluate what you get signing wise, and then what you can get out of the portal. So I think this is going to be just a fine class that Josh Heupel can work year 3 into.
In most polls, Tennessee is ahead of Clemson. That's something to be said about Josh Heupel in year 2.
Oh, I think absolutely. Yeah, especially stacking that up with probably some commits or some visits that may be making their way to Miami with the Vols or the Tigers. So I think that's a huge point. That's a good call to make. The next thing, again, we got to get to is bowl pick'ems. We're going to pick the games here as we move through the rest of the getting toward New Year's. We're going to pick the 22nd. Through the I think it's the 21st actually, through the 28th. Let's go with some picks. Let me get the first game up here. So Ben, you ready for Christmas, man? You got everything you need?
Everything. I have everything that I need except gifts for the wife. So I'm working on my wife right now.
So you do not have everything you need, because here's the thing. It can all be right, and if you miss that one, no pressure, buddy. But that one can really derail you pretty quick. The first one tomorrow will be Baylor at Air Force Armed Forces Bowl. I said at Air Force on purpose because they're the armed forces in this game. So I feel like they should be the home team. Baylor really made me mad. They're a 4.5-point favorite in this one, but all I needed them to do was beat TCU, and they couldn't do it. So I'm not a big fan there, but I do know Air Force is not a super strong team. I think Baylor, just with the schedule they've played, honestly playing a TCU, I think that's going to give them the favor. Give me Baylor in the Armed Forces Bowl.
Out the gate, we're going to disagree on this one, Wayne. I'm going with Air Force. Baylor is awful on third downs. Falcons have one of the top rushing programs in the country, 330.6 yards rushing, lead the nation in time of possession. Brad Roberts, 1,612 yards rushing, 15 touchdowns. I'm taking Air Force.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Somebody has to be wrong in that one. Just let the fans pick who they want to ride with. All I'm saying is Baylor has scored in the 20s or more in, I think, 11 of their 12 football games. So just something to think about, how their defense may stack up, or how Air Force's defense may not stack up is what I'm trying to say. The next ball game on the docket, Louisiana and Houston in the Independence Bowl. Dana Holgerson's Cougars are a 7-point favorite over Louisiana. Louisiana's really been reeling post Billy Napier's exit to go to Florida. I don't think this one's as close as the line would recommend. I'm going to go with the Cougs over Louisiana.
Taking the Cougars as well. Clayton Clean Tune 67.4 pass rating, close to 4,000 yards and touchdowns, and 37 touchdowns. That Raging Cajun defense is going to be stingy, but unable to stop Toon.
Wake Forest and Missouri are hitting it up in the Gasparilla Bowl. Eli Drinkwitz's crew is a dog on the bowl game. A 1.5 to Wake Forest. That is a Dave Clawson-led Wake Forest team, former offensive coordinator for the University of Tennessee. This was probably one of the hardest picks of bowl season for me, because I blame a ton of the fall of Tennessee football on Dave Clawson, and really his hire, because I felt like we weren't ready for that, Dave. And if you look at his Wake Forest career, nowhere he's ever been was ready for it year one. And he had to come in, win, didn't do it. Long story short, I'm not mad, but I have a scar right here. But then Missouri, hate Elijah Drinkwitz right now. Like, he's a big mouth. I mean, he's probably an accountant at best, but he gets to be a Power 5 football coach. He does just enough for probably Missouri not to fire him. I think they would have fired him by now if he was going to get fired, which, I mean, if you get blown out by Wake Forest, there's still a chance. But I always want to say, give me the SEC, because in anything, when it gets sideways, we play tougher competition. But you know what? With Florida's egg that they may have laid a whole dozen against Oregon State. I'm going with Wake Forest. Give me the Demon Deacons, because they don't have as many problems as Missouri does. Give me the Demon Deacons.
So like you, I dislike both of these coaches, but I'm going with the Demon Deacons. Sam Hartman, 3,421 yards passing. Mizzou lost to Kentucky and Florida this year. That Dave Clawson offense is going to take over in this ballgame.
Yeah, next one will be on the Christmas Eve, the only game on the docket on Christmas Eve, Middle Tennessee and San Diego State in the Hawaii Bowl. Like, literally, that's one of the top three. If you don't make the playoffs, I would want to go to. I would want to go to the Miami or the Bahama Bowl, the Hawaii Bowl, and maybe the Orange Bowl. I mean, I'm kind of cool with that. They're all beachy kind of bowl games. But Middle Tennessee, a 7-point dog to San Diego State. Middle Tennessee, where Jason Maneker is going to go to college, not play football, but the man maker for the Red Rebels is going to be a Blue Raider for the next 4 to 5 years.
I think he might eventually don that Blue Raider jersey. You?
Yeah, you got somebody mowing out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
I got Aaron on the mower.
Oh, well, hey, you got business to do. You're right here. But Middle Tennessee, San Diego State. San Diego State, a 7-point favorite. I don't have a reason not to go with a team that's probably played. They're both 7-5. Middle Tennessee's third in their conference. San Diego State's third in their conference. So there wasn't a lot to really put a whole lot on. I even went, when you have tiebreakers, you have, okay, then it's like the last name of the coach's animal, and then it's like all these things. So I went to third down efficiency, okay? And I'm going to go with the team that's 133rd in the country, not the team that's 169th in the country. Give me Middle Tennessee. Give me the Blue Raiders.
I went with another stat, Wayne. Aztecs only allowed 14 points 5 times this year. So I'm going to go with San Diego State. I don't think the Blue Raiders can do much on the ground offensively, and they can't keep that D out of the backfield.
Here's another cool stat. Now, San Diego State did have a lot of success, but they were 5-2 at home, only winning 2 games away from their home stadium. Middle Tennessee, they won the majority of their games on the road, 4-3 on the road, 3-2 in Murfreesboro. So we'll see who's right. You probably will be. That's kind of the swan song that I have. No Christmas Day games. Then we jump to the 26th. So the games there will be New Mexico State and Bowling Green in the Quick Lane Bowl. Bowling Green, a 3.5-point favorite. New Mexico State, I really don't have anything on either one of these teams. Basically a pick 'em with Bowling Green getting the nod. Both teams are 6-6. What do you say? I'm going to let you pick first.
So Bowling Green is 0-6 when giving up 38 or more points, and of course 6-0 when fewer. The Aggies won't score that much. I'm picking Bowling Green.
I'm going to pick Bowling Green as well, and mine is going back to that road and away record. They are evenly 3-3 at home, 3-3 on the road. So it doesn't matter where they play the same brand of football. So I'm gonna go with Bowling Green as well. The 27th is going to have a couple more games on the docket. It's going to have Georgia Southern and Buffalo in the Camellia Bowl. It's a 3.5-point nod to Georgia Southern. I really haven't heard anything from Buffalo since Turner Gill left. So that's how long it's been for me. What do you say? 6-6, both these clubs.
Taking Georgia Southern. Buffalo will need to crank up the turnovers against Southern. The O-line for Southern will prevent those turnovers, and I predict Kyle Van Treese is going to have a big game.
Well, I'm going to take Southern as well, and the reason is because they have a better offense and a better defense. You look at it, total yards per game. They're not giving up. It's kind of a push there on total yardage, but you look at the offense. They're averaging 473 yards of offense per game. Buffalo only just under 400. So I think the margin there will be in favor of Georgia Southern, and I think honestly it's a bigger game for them. I think it means more to them.
I get another word bigger than margin.
No, margarine. I mean, isn't that a form of butter?
Yeah.
But anyway, Memphis at Utah State or with Utah State in the First Responders Bowl. Memphis is 7.5-point favorite. Both teams 6-6. It will be played in Dallas, Texas. Don't know that means anything to you, but it is closer to Memphis than it is Utah. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Memphis in this one. One, because they average nearly 100 more yards of offense than Utah State, and then their defense is allowing about 30 yards less than Utah State. So I'm going to go with Memphis in this one.
So I'm going to go with Utah State. They're getting a couple defensive backs back for this ball game. A.J. Carter and Michael Owenu. They'll join Ike Larson, and I'm a defensive back guy, so they're going to be strong back there. I think Hennigan will have a late turnover. I think Cooper Legis will have a big game, but at the end of the day, I think Utah State wins with those turnovers.
I hope people are writing this down because I got a feeling I'll have some things I can talk about next week.
You got this week, huh?
The Battle of Carolina is in the Birmingham Bowl, so Alabama will host two Carolina teams, Coastal and East Carolina, the Chanticleers and the Pirates. 7.5-point nod to East Carolina. I watched the Myrtle Beach Bowl, and it's at Coastal Carolina. That teal, turquoise, whatever color that is, turf, that's god awful. Like, I'll be honest, I wouldn't put that on my back deck. I'll just say that. But both teams, Coastal's 9-3, East Carolina's 7-5, but East Carolina's 5th in the AAC, and Coastal they won that side of their conference. So I think it's a heavy favorite if you look on just bare bones paper, it's probably a Coastal deal. But I'll say this is an East Carolina offense that I don't think you want to let get loose.
I'm with you. I take East Carolina. I think there's two headlines in this ball game that are going to cause some problems for Coastal Carolina. The first one's Grayson McCall enters the transfer portal. He's going to play in this game, but he's had a nagging ankle injury that he's played through all season. So I don't expect him to play the entire ball game. And then Coach Chadwell went to Liberty. So I think they're dealing a little bit with that. So I expect Keaton Mitchell to have a big game on the run, and Eastern Carolina wins this.
Yeah, I'm going to go with East Carolina as well. Just Jamie Chadwell was my lone swing vote right there, because when things get tight, because I think in a game like this, some transfer portal, some opt-outs, different things, you need a guy who when it's 3rd and maybe 5. Well, and a lot of times that's kind of easy going. Well, maybe Chadwell takes a chance and does something that wins the football game. I don't think they have that on the sideline, so give me East Carolina. The Guaranteed Rate Bowl is Wisconsin and Oklahoma State. Wisconsin, the Cheeseheads, taking on the Mullet Men of Oklahoma State. 3-point favorite to Wisconsin. It's a 10:15 p.m. kickoff for this one. I don't think either one of these teams are used to keeping those Pac-12 hours. I'm a little intrigued by this one. 6-6 Wisconsin, 7-5 Oklahoma State. Who you got?
I'm taking Wisconsin. Both starting quarterbacks hit the portal, will not play, so you got backups on both sides of the ball. Wisconsin still has Braylon Allen. He's 208 attempts rushing, 1126 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Wisconsin wins.
You know, I'm going to look at Wisconsin, and it's really not anything about the offensive side of the ball. It's about the defensive side of the ball. When you have a backup quarterback for Oklahoma State, Wisconsin was 31st in the country, only allowing 324 total yards of offense. To me, that was with starters on those football teams. So you get a backup in there, they're going to try to get upfield as much as they can and probably wreak a little bit of havoc. And, again, one of the stats I like to use in bowl picks, Oklahoma State only won one game away from where's their stadium at? It doesn't matter. They only won one game there. 6-1 at home, 1-4 on the road. So yeah, give me Wisconsin. Give me the cheese men right there. But then the last day of picks here, the 28th, we're starting to get into games that have some meaning. Next week, you guys don't want to miss this show because we're going to have different reasons, but maybe some better reasons because we'll have more impact on the teams. UCF and Duke in the Military Bowl. Duke's a 3-point favorite over Gus Malzahn's UCF team. 2 p.m. kickoff. Both teams, UCF's 9-4, Duke's 8-4. What about a quiet, great season for the Blue Devils? It's going to be at the Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. Great venue there. I'm going to go ahead and pick. I forced you to pick early in the last one. I'm going to go with Dookie. I'm going to go with the Blue Devils. And it's really their offense is 69th in the country, 430 yards of offense. It's really UCF has more offense, but I also look at who they've played, how they've done that. But then defensively, it's almost a stalemate. Looks like Duke is allowing 399.5. and UCF's allowing 395.2. So it's basically dead even defensively. I think competition, what you've played, and really people, they don't go to Duke to get to the NFL. Let's just put it out there. So I like the Duke Blue Devils. I like that they understand the tradition that it is the Military Bowl, and I think they're going to get it done.
If they still sold the TV guide and they mailed that to you, this is one that I'd take that TV guide and I'd circle this ball game because this is going to be a coin toss. It was very difficult for me to pick. You got Reese Plumlee versus Riley Leonard. Both are equally strong quarterbacks. It's going to come down to whoever makes the fewest mistakes. I think UCF is going to keep it close. I think Duke's going to play discipline, but at the end of the day, Gus Malzahn finds a way to win it in a close ball game.
Yeah, I think we're split there, man. We've split a lot today. That's good. That's good. That's good podcast. That's good radio. The next one is is December 28th. It is. I'm trying to get the name of the bowl. Look, you know it's a bad bowl when they take it off. It's the Liberty Bowl. It's out there in Memphis. It's Kansas and Arkansas. Probably distance or travel. Not a big impact for either one of these teams. Lance Leupold, who's the head coach of Kansas, this is to put a cherry on the top of a beautiful cake that he's brought to Kansas. Arkansas, Sam Pittman, he loses this football game. I think his seat is warm heading into 2023. So really a topsy-turvy game here for both teams for different reasons. Who you got?
Well, I'm going to take Arkansas. Kansas hasn't performed on this stage since 2008. So KJ Jefferson's coming in, only 4 picks on the season. This is a guy who went 17 for 22 against Ole Miss with 3 touchdowns in the regular season. So I think KJ Jefferson's going to have a big game, and Raheem Sanders is going to have a big game, and they'll handle Kansas.
Yeah, I think Kansas doesn't stop the run very well, and I think Sam Pittman plays a smash-mouth brand of football, so I'm going to go with the Razorbacks as well, and I think they're going to play. I think they love Sam Pittman. I think this season just got away from them a little bit, so I'm going to go with the Razorbacks as well. The Holiday Bowl is number 15 Oregon taking on North Carolina. It's an 8 p.m. kick, 14.5-point favorite for the Ducks. Widest margin that we've seen to this point in bowl season. I know Bo Nix is coming back. Bo Nix is an elusive player, but are they 2+ touchdowns better than North Carolina?
I don't think so, Wayne. I'm going to go with the Ducks here. UNC's defense will have Storm Duck back. However, a healthy D is still last in the ACC. Josh Downs is out for North Carolina. Bo Nix is in. Going with the Ducks.
Here's something to watch. I'm going to go with the Ducks as well, just because you can't. I mean, there's smart decisions, and then there's idiocy, and I feel like the taking North Carolina might be the opposite. But here's a stat to watch. North Carolina this season undefeated on the road, 6-0 on the road, 3-4 in their home stadium. So they play better when the crowd's against them. So I think that's going to be the case there in this bowl game. But I'm going to go with the Ducks. Even maybe if I had the points to take, I would take the points in North Carolina. But just straight up, give me Oregon to win. And then probably the most explosive game on the nightcap: Ole Miss and Texas Tech in the Texas Bowl. So you have a Texas team playing in the Texas Bowl, and I'm going to be the silly one that takes Ole Miss. I think an 8-4 Ole Miss team, I think there's still a lot to play for Lane Kiffin's bunch. I think he's had a really nice signing day today. He's going to bring some more players into the SIP, as he calls it. And I think a 7-5 Texas Tech team, they're here based on the conference they play in, not because of the stout play that they make. They've got a really good offense, averaging nearly 500 yards per game, but defensively, they're giving up a good bit, plus 400. So I don't like Texas Tech. I'm gonna say give me the Sharks, the Land Sharks, the Brown Bears, whatever they are. Give me Ole Miss.
I'm taking Ole Miss as well. Heads are clear on Lane Kiffin and what his future will hold. But not only that, Tyree Wilson is an NFL pass rusher that plays for the Red Raiders, and he is out. He is opted out. This is a guy who has 50 pressures and 32 hurries on the season. So with no pressure on Jackson Dart, he's going to be comfortable back there, and it's going to cause problems for the Raiders.
Well, Ben, that's been the list of picks that we had this week. We've still got some great games in front of us. Next week we'll have the likes of the Cheez-It Bowl, Oklahoma, Florida State. We'll have Tennessee's bowl game to pick next week, and then ultimately head to the college football playoff games. We will not pick the championship game because we won't know who's playing in it at that point, but we will get through the picks. But Ben, as we close out today's show, real quick, we're kind of past our time. I think maybe 30 minutes is aggressive. I don't know that we're ever going to hit that. But closing comments and this week's big time grind, what you got?
So my grind is Vern Harris, John Higgins, and Tony Padilla in the basketball game against Arizona. At the end of the game, conversations at the water cooler or social media shouldn't be about officiating. They should be about the outcome, the efforts, the statistics of the game played, not who called it and how they called the game. We have to do a better job at officiating ball games. That's my grind for this week.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on the kind of the similar path, but different take on it. And it's bowl game opt-outs, and I understand it's the closest I've ever been to being, I don't know, split decision. I'm pretty, make the decision and go. That's my take. But I go back and forth on these opt-outs. I completely understand the health piece. I completely understand you get injured in a bowl game that doesn't matter, doesn't play for championships, and then you lose out an opportunity to go to the NFL. I understand that. But I also understand that without reservation, this university, this fan base, this whoever we're talking to, have invested, 2, 3, 4 years in you, and have stood behind you. And all we want to do is see one more bowl game. We want to see one more run out there. We want to see one more great catch, because you know what? If you go to a terrible NFL team, we're probably not going to get to see it. So I think from a fan, I don't like it. I don't like opt-outs. I think there's something that has to be done. Meet in the middle. Either pay these kids to play in the bowl game. There's been, I don't know if you call it profit sharing or what you call it, but cut in some of the players to the bowl, I guess, money, the purse, if you will. I don't know what you have to do, but when you have kids and the Ohio State kid opted out of a college football playoff game because he wants to go to the NFL, you've got to break down walls there. There's something going on. So that's my big time grind. No trashing any one player. I'll be honest. I don't like any of it. So it's Tennessee and all the rest of them too. So, but I think that's there's room for growth in the offseason. I think you can say that each and every year. But as we get closer to a bigger playoff, I think this becomes a bigger issue because you get people in a playoff that quite frankly that team's not the same team that got in there. But Ben, another good show, buddy. I know by the next time we talk, I'm going to find out if you indeed did survive Christmas and got Erin what she needs or what she wants. I mean, sometimes that need part around Christmas doesn't have to take effect, but I'm ready. Both boys are taken care of. Now they're working hard this week for Santa not to show up to the Kaiser house, but we're getting there.
Well, I hope Neelan and Jackson and Laura have a great Christmas, and pray for me. Hope I survive it.
I think you make good decisions in these bowl picks, so I wouldn't expect anything else in getting a really good present for Miss Erin. But you know what? We've come to the end of the show. We're going to sign off here. You can check us out on Facebook, Twitter. We don't have Instagram or any of those, so if you see a grind, that's not us. But Facebook and Twitter, YouTube's channel, that's where this video will post. But if you just like the podcast, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and working hard this week to get us on getting us on Spotify. But until next time, grind on.